Peace. What's good, YouTube? It's Kareem Samadi back again with another video. All right, so today we're gonna get into the law of detachment or letting go. And the first thing we're gonna talk about is letting go in the form of how we escape into things that do not serve us and how we distract ourselves with things that don't serve us, right? So escapism can take many different forms. Distractions can take many different forms, right? And a lot of us, especially if we're just coming into spirituality, we're just coming into consciousness, right? We may not understand how much we've been distracting ourselves, not just from our spiritual path, but also from the relationship with ourselves, from dealing with our problems, from dealing with our feelings, dealing with our issues, dealing with our shadow, right? Essentially, if you don't let go, or you don't learn how to let go of what you've been escaping into, then essentially you will be held back, right? You know, we avoid feelings by diversion, right? A lot of times. And what we'll do is we'll divert our attention. We'll divert the attention off of the things that need work, the things that need healing within ourselves. We'll divert it all into endless pursuits. There's always going to be an endless pursuit. The ego always needs to endlessly pursue something in order to feel complete. It always says, when I get this, I'll feel complete. When I do this, I'll feel complete. When this happens, I'll feel complete. When that happens, I'll feel complete, right? It's always constantly pursuing something, right? And not only that, but the ego can't process and can't handle, deeper problems. So essentially what it'll do is it'll keep chasing things to keep you distracted, right? And what this also tells your subconscious mind is that you need to repress your feelings about certain things. You need to repress your thoughts about certain things. You need to repress dealing with certain things because obviously it feels better to do that. The ego needs to feel comfortable, right, for your own sanity. So, and the thing is, we are desperate to stay unconscious of ourselves en masse, right? To be conscious is to be aware, self-aware. Not just self-aware in the sense that, okay, I can see myself in the mirror, I know that's me, like self-awareness, consciousness, spiritual consciousness really means seeing the fact that you have been in control of everything. It's all been going on in your mind, right? Your mind, your emotions, your subconscious mind, your emotions, and the feelings, right, have been playing a big role in creating your reality, right? So consciousness really means understanding your role in everything, understanding your role in your emotional state, understanding your control over your emotional state, understanding your control over your feelings, being able to have agency over feelings and letting go of the things that don't serve you, letting go of the feelings that don't serve you in order to invite advancement, in order to invite spiritual development into your life, right? Being conscious is much larger than just recognizing that you're an individual, right? It's really understanding first of all, your bullshit, right, that you've been carrying around. It's understanding your excuses that you've been making up for yourself for not being in the position that you want to be in. It's understanding essentially how you have a root cause in a lot of your feelings, right? And a lot of your attachments. There's a root cause underlying that. It's taking responsibility for everything in your life. That's what real consciousness is. And when you understand that in its entirety, that consciousness can transform into enlightenment, right? And it only transforms when you let go of everything, right? Essentially, and so the thing is, we have been told en masse to really be unconscious of ourselves. A lot of people are unconscious of themselves, and that's the way that they can feel comfortable for their own sanity, right? You can escape into anything, and I mean anything. You can escape into workaholism. You can escape into vacations. You can escape into reading books or reading things online. You can escape into drugs. You can escape into TV, escape into video games, escape into talking to other people, gossiping to other people, distracting yourself through a lot of talking just to keep your mind off of what's going on within, right? You can distract yourself through texting, escape through pornography, escape through sex. You can escape through music, always having something playing, always having the TV on, right? You can escape through endless scrolling online, endless procrastination. You can escape through the radio. You can escape through overeating. You can escape through shopping. You can escape through the movies, parties, popping pills, sightseeing. All these things are the most common things. Anything can be an escape, right? And the more you escape into these things, the more you take the focus off of yourself. And so this is why people will wonder, they'll be spiritual, right? But people will wonder why spiritual things aren't occurring for them. It's simply because of the fact that they are constantly escaping into things. You can escape into spirituality too, right? That's not a good thing, but that's a good example, right, of how escapism can really turn into anything. Because when you escape into spirituality, you can also forget about your real world issues, right? I talked about this in the chakra series. I talked about this when I got into the higher chakras, like the third eye, the throat, and the crown, right? Since there's so much focus on the throat, or not on the throat chakra, but on the third eye chakra, that can take focus off of your root chakra. It can take focus off of your sacral chakra, right? And so that can really take you away from being grounded in this physical reality and taking care of your basic needs, and also connecting with others as well, right? So we have to understand you can escape through anything, even spirituality. You have to have a full balance in everything. You also have a full responsibility of the focus that you have on yourself, right? If you're not doing the spiritual work, and by spiritual work, I mean meditating, I mean applying whatever you read in the spiritual books, applying that. Whatever you watch on the videos, spiritual videos, applying that, right? If you're not doing the spiritual work and you're not evening out that balance, right? Balancing out how much time you spend focused on the physical world, how much time you spend focused on the world within, right? If you're not doing that work, then essentially you are doing a disservice to yourself, right? And I had to learn this the hard way. I had to learn that I was escaping through a lot of things the hard way. Like I said, when I was younger, I used to escape into a lot of things. I had a lot of stuff going on, especially when I was in the military. I had a lot of stuff going on and it was hard for me, right? I escaped through playing video games way, way too much, right? I love video games, but I know when I was in the military, and also before I went to the military, I played video games all day. And I didn't make anything out of it, right? I didn't make it into something productive for myself. I just played them and played them and played them, endless consumption, right? I was on my phone all the time. I can never not be on my phone, right? That's also another form of distraction, right? I had excessive porn use, right? If you use porn, I don't care if you use porn or not, but obviously I do advocate for people to practice NoFap if they do have a problem with porn, right? But so like back then I did have a problem with it because I used it all the time, right? And instead of filling my life with more productive things, right? So I wasn't getting anything back out of that. It was just another source of time wasting for me, right? And I used to watch TV a lot, right? And all that stuff, it kept me very, distracted. I also escaped in the form of casual sex with women too, right? And that became at the time, it became a sex addiction for a little bit. And I was never one for drugs, but at one point I was trying to use it. I was trying to drink more. I was trying to smoke more, but it just didn't happen for me. That's when I got my reality check, when I started noticing myself trying to use drugs to really escape from essentially the pressure of the reality that I was dealing with, right? I had a rough childhood at times. I had a lot of rough run-ins at the military too. And so when it really came time for me to face that and take responsibility for that and stop making excuses, right? Stop hanging on to it so much. Like I said in the video about the story that you tell yourself, right? And stop using that as something to hold me in place, to build a prison around that story that I told myself, right? And actually start to create my reality going forward, focus on my reality going forward, but also processing my emotions, processing my feelings, right? When you process your feelings, you let your feelings sit, you don't resist them, right? And you don't try to change them. You don't try to self-reinforce them with different thoughts. But when you process your feelings, the same way that when you process pain, when you stub your toe, eventually it goes away, right? David R. Hawkins wrote a book called Letting Go. And it talks about the mechanism of letting go and surrender, right? So when you surrender to your feelings, especially the big feelings surrounding a lot of things, right, in your life, you will essentially transform because you will let go, right? You have to understand, if you ever had an argument with somebody and you got really, really mad and then you realize it was silly later and you started to laugh about it and they started to laugh about it, it's because you let go of the resentment. It's because you let go of the anger. It allowed you to see that, okay, I don't need to hold on to this anymore. If I hold on to this anymore, it's going to hold me back, right? So we have to realize that a lot of what we've done to ourselves through escapism and distraction, right? These represent things that we have not dealt with. And because we don't want to deal with them, our subconscious mind will align with the distractions that we want to raise in our lives so that we don't focus on these things. This is why meditation is so important. This is why the spiritual work is so important, because when you close your eyes and you take your focus off of the real world, or I wouldn't even say the real world because this is the matrix, but you take your focus off of the physical world and your focus becomes within and you're relaxed. That's when the things that you have not dealt with will pop up. And it seems scary at first because you've been avoiding it out of fear of how bad those feelings will feel, right? Instead of letting go, instead of seeing a solution, right? So when these things come up, it's going to be hard, right? It was hard for me, and it still is hard for me. I would be lying if I said I'm still not letting go of different things, because new things pop up every day. But the process of letting go has become much faster for me, because once I decided to really understand and apply the mechanism of letting go, apply surrender, right? Once I really began to understand how to apply this, it really put things in perspective for me, and it really made it easier for me to heal, right? Because when I recognize problems, whether they're short-term problems or whether it's something I didn't remember or I didn't notice was there because I had to go deep in my subconscious mind and pull it out, right? Or when I recognize it through the way my dreams have been talking to me, right? By reading my dream journal, right? Whatever the case may be, when I recognize there's a problem, long-term or short-term, it's easier for me to understand how to let it go. It's easier for me to remember, okay, all I have to do is process the pain. All I have to do is process the discomfort. All I have to do is process whatever's going on. And then it'll disappear, right? See, our problems do not have agency over us. They do not control us. And we have to understand that, right? Our past does not have agency over us. It does not control us. We control where we go at every given moment, right? Other people, our environment does not have agency over us. It does not control us. Everything is your mind, right? So when you really begin to align with what's in your mind and you begin to see your role in everything, right? And you begin to really be conscious of this, that's when you can really start to change everything. That's when you can really start to understand how to transform, understand how to morph the reality that's not serving you into a reality that does serve you. So, and we have to understand, like, all these escapisms, all these distractions, these are ineffective ways to deal with our problems, and they're faulty, and they require a lot of energy to keep down that pressure and the suppressed and the repressed feelings. They require a lot of energy to keep everything, keep you distracted, right? You know how they say it takes a lot more out of you to be angry at someone and to hold it than it does to forgive them for yourself, not condoning what they did. It takes a lot more energy to hold a grudge than it does to move on. And so this is the same thing, right? It takes a lot more energy to force yourself to feel a certain way by escaping into different things than it does to really just face the problems within. Letting go is easy. Escaping is harder because you build up pressure. It's like when a volcano builds up pressure, it's going to explode. It's going to erupt at some point. It's going to melt down at some point. That's essentially what we're doing with ourselves. Whenever we distract ourselves, whenever we escape into things, we repress and we suppress our feelings. And so this holds us back spiritually. Spiritually, we are here to let go. If you're a higher melanated person, you are here to let go of this matrix, right? You are here to let go simply because of the fact that the universe is changing. So you have to let go of the universe that you've been on for millions of years into going back to the real universe, leaving the matrix universe, going to a real universe, right? And so all these distractions, they're why we block our lower chakras, right? Because this can result in a loss of creativity. That's attacking your sacral chakra, right? A loss of energy, solar plexus, because that's your energy center. And if you're not using that energy within you to face your problems, then you're going to lack that energy. You're gonna be overcompensating. So the energy has to go somewhere. And so it's probably gonna go in different places to keep you sustained, right? And it results in a loss of interest in other people too. And the reason why is because when it comes to our sacral chakra, it's a one-on-one connection with others. So if we don't have a one-on-one connection with ourselves, and with our feelings, how can we have a legitimate connection and interest in other people? It doesn't work that way, right? So this is why it's important to really face yourself, right? You have to face yourself. You have to face your feelings. You have to face this, and you have to let it process, man. Literally let it process. That's literally how easy it is. You sit still and you let it process. You keep your mind still and you let it process. You don't have to do anything crazy. You don't have to hang upside down. You don't have to sit in a crazy yoga position. You don't have to climb to a mountaintop. You don't have to take a trip to India, take a trip to Egypt. All you have to do is just face what's within you. Process what's within you. You don't have to do anything special, because you have the energy to deal with your problems within, right? But if you don't, and you keep distracting yourself, it's going to halt your spiritual growth. It's going to create physical and emotional illnesses because, like I said, it builds up that pressure within. So if you don't spiritually deal with it first, then essentially your body will suffer. And so your body has to let go of the built up stress. It has to let go of the built up emotional repression and suppression too. More recently, this happened last week because I got hypnotherapy from Khadija Samdi, right? You can go check her out. Just type in Samdi readings, right? She does hypnotherapy. So I got a reading from her and I went into 2 different past lives, and I also was able to heal from different issues that I was holding on to. So when I heal from those issues, right? There was a lot built in my heart chakra. There's a lot of built up, tension there. There's a lot of built up tension in my sacral chakra, a lot of built up tension in my solar plexus chakra, right? And also before I even got the hypnotherapy, there was a lot happening too. And so, I was letting go from, just the end of a relationship, right? I was letting go of that. And that was really a lot. And so the next day after the hypnotherapy had finished, after I come to terms with it, because once I've noticed certain things, right? And I've been meditating, I've been healing myself. When I know certain things, your body will purge it, right? So it might build up, right? And so my body started purging the next day. And I literally thought I was going to die. All right. My body started purging. I felt like I was going to throw up all the time. I was on a toilet a lot. That's because your chakras they're releasing things. If you find yourself sweating a lot, it's because your chakras are releasing things. You find yourself on a toilet a lot because your root chakra is releasing a lot. And I literally felt the pressure from my heart chakra drop down the chakra ladder and exit out of me, and that process continued, for a longer time than I expected it would, and the entire time the focus was on letting go of my issues. So I had to meditate while dealing with these things. And so your body purges itself in different ways. But if you repress and you suppress things over a long period of time, and I'm talking like your entire life, this is why people end up with cancer. This is why people end up with diseases that they think aren't incurable. See, the disease is a reflection of what's been held within for a long time. So that's when disease, and this can occur from different lives too. But also we can create disease in this life if we hold on to things or if we ignore things too long. So disease is a reflection of that. That's why you get long-term disease that seems incurable. But the real way to cure it is to face yourself within, to process within. This is why a lot of people who are on their deathbed, they find themselves astral projecting and having to face their issues. And sometimes people have a miraculous recovery because they face their issues. They let go of everything that they've been distracting themselves from, like they let go of all of it. And distracting yourself also can result in aging too, because you're building it up. And so your body has to use so much more energy just to face it, just to sustain you. And so that can take the youth out of you, that can take the melanin out of you, right? And obviously death is another way that, another result from distracting yourself, another result of escapism, right? Death can happen, because your body has to liberate you from what you haven't really been facing. And even in the astral world, right? You still have to face it. A lot of people think that death is going to liberate them from their problems. It just builds up even more in the spiritual world. And so that's why people think that they go to hell, because they're constantly facing things that they didn't face throughout life. They have to face it. They have to face it to move on. And so if you don't move on, if you don't go into the darkness and really face everything inside of you and then move past it, then you might be on your way to having another trip back. just to learn different lessons. And that's okay if you had to learn different lessons, right? You might have learned the lesson that you needed to learn in this life. So if you're going to learn it in a different life, your spirit, your soul will put you in a position to learn that lesson easier. It'll make everything easier for you. And another result of this is the inability to truly love and trust others, because you haven't truly loved and trust yourself to face your problems, to face the things that you've been distracting yourself from. And so that's huge, right? This is where the heart chakra can really become imbalanced, because you have to love and trust yourself all the time, right? That love and trust relationship with yourself is key. It's key to understanding your purpose. It's key to understanding your place in life. It's key to understanding where to go in life, letting your higher self guide you. But if you're not doing that, especially if you're not trusting yourself to be able to deal with these issues, to know that you'll be safe in dealing with these issues just by letting them process, right? You're not allowing yourself to properly love, nourish, and take you through the fire, take you through the furnace, the problems, take you through the pain, and knowing that you'll come out safe on the other end, refined on the other end, more powerful spiritually and physically and mentally on the other end, right? So the relationship with ourselves is very important, and we cannot escape and we cannot distract ourselves from things that we know that we need to face on the spiritual path, right? On the spiritual path, if you're really looking to transform, escapism and distractions will not serve you, right? So this is a part of being conscious, just being self-aware of yourself emotionally, right? Spiritually being self-aware of your role and all that's going on of your role in your mental state, of your role in your physical state, where you're at in life, physically, mentally, spiritually, emotionally, right? You have to take responsibility for that. No one can do it for you. No one can meditate for you. No one can let go of the problems for you. No book can really do it for you, can make you come to the realizations for you, unless you apply it, unless you really sit down with yourself and say, okay, let me do the exercises. Let me really go within, right? Let me meditate. Unless you really do that work, find a discipline to do that work, and really find the love within yourself to want to do that work consistently, right? If you don't do that, you will be lost. That's essentially what happens, right? It happened to me. I'm sure it's happened to millions, if not billions of people in the course of this world's history, right? We all have our issues that we need to deal with. So not dealing with them, will keep us from spiritual progression, right? So that's what letting go really is all about when it comes to the escapism and when it comes to distraction. We have to really let go of these things. They don't serve us. The only thing that we should be escaping into is into our higher self's embrace. Or if you believe in a God outside of you, escaping into God's embrace. And still, in that sense, letting go of the stuff that does not serve you, right? And so even then, it's still working against you being comfortable, thinking that you can escape and distract yourself from the pain within, from the darkness within. You have to go into the darkness, and that's really it. That's all I have to say about this. So I hope it inspired you guys. I hope it motivated you guys to really do the work in letting go. When it comes to the book, Get Letting Go by David R. Hawkins, I'm gonna leave the link in the description. And so I wish you all luck in your journey, and peace.